Did you ever stop to think that even the biggest rock legends, people like Jimmie Page, the iconic guitarist of Led Zeppelin, might have musicians they actually couldn't stand? It feels strange, doesn't it? We usually imagine these stars as all being best buds, jamming together backstage, sharing laughs and stories. But the truth is a bit messier. Jimmie Page, now 81, recently opened up about some musicians he hated and why. And some of what he revealed might surprise you, because honestly, it challenges everything we think about rockstar camaraderie. If you've ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes in the world of music legends, the praise, sure, but also the drama, rivalries, and the grudges, you're definitely in the right place. Today, we're going to unpack those surprising revelations from Jimmie Page. We'll bust a few myths, share some personal stories, and take a peek at how even musical geniuses aren't immune to conflict or clashing personalities. So if you're a music fan, a lover of rock history, or just curious about what happens when the spotlight's off, stick around. This is going to be one fascinating ride. Let's get into the details. First up, Jimmie didn't hold back when talking about one musician in particular. This wasn't just a little dislike. It was a genuine dislike that seemed to come from a deep frustration. Now, Jimmie is known for his cool, laid-back demeanor, so when he speaks about this musician's attitude, you know it's serious. Apparently, the person's offstage persona was a total turnoff. Imagine that. A rock star acting like a diva, not only to fans or the media, but even around fellow musicians. It's hard to believe that someone with so much talent could be so difficult to be around, right? But it's a reminder that talent alone doesn't always earn respect or friendship. Now, it's easy to jump to conclusions and think, well, maybe they were just misunderstood. Or maybe it was just a bad day. But Jimmie shared that this wasn't a one-off situation. It was a consistent pattern that made it impossible to work or socialize with that artist. And here's the kicker. Despite all the drama, that musician was wildly popular and successful. So it raises a question. Can someone be great at their craft but terrible as a person? Apparently, yes. Moving on, Jimmie also touched on something that really hits home for anyone who's ever tried to collaborate creatively, a clash in musical styles. And honestly, it's not just about music. It's about how personal and deeply rooted our creative tastes are, and what happens when those tastes just don't align with someone else's. It's a situation that anyone who's ever worked on a team or tried to create something with another person will totally understand. Jimmie explained that some artists just didn't vibe with his musical direction, and it's fascinating because it highlights how much creativity is subjective and personal. Think about it. What excites one person, what makes their heart race and their fingers itch to play, might completely irritate someone else. It's like having your favorite pizza topping. Maybe you love pineapple on your pizza, the sweet and tangy bite that's somehow both controversial and beloved. But then there's someone else who thinks pineapple on pizza is a crime against food. It's not a matter of right or wrong, just taste. And this difference in taste can cause some real friction. The same goes for music. Jimmie's creative vision was shaped by his influences, his experiences, and his personality. He was all about pushing boundaries, experimenting with sound, and maintaining a certain authenticity in rock and blues. But when he encountered other artists who approached music in ways that clashed with that vision, it wasn't always easy to find common ground. For example, some musicians might have leaned towards more commercial sounds or trends that Jimmie felt were too polished or artificial. That kind of difference can feel like a betrayal to someone who prizes raw, honest music. Now, this isn't just about taste or ego, it's about identity. When you're a musician, your style isn't just a way of making sound, it's a core part of who you are. And when someone else's style conflicts with yours, it can feel like a personal challenge or even a threat. Imagine you've spent years crafting a style that feels true to you, your rhythms, your chords, your energy, and then someone else comes along with a completely different approach. Maybe it's electronic beats when you prefer organic, instruments or flashy pop hooks when you're rooted in blues riffs. It's like two painters trying to share the same canvas with totally different palettes and brushes. What's really interesting is that Jimmie didn't just dismiss these differences outright. He recognized that everyone brings their own story and perspective to their music. But when those perspectives clash so deeply that collaboration became a headache instead of a joy, that's when frustration set in. He talked about how some artists seemed more interested in chasing trends or commercial success than staying true to their musical roots. And that rubbed him the wrong way. It's kind of like if you're baking a cake with a friend and you want a rich classic chocolate cake, but they keep wanting to add every trendy ingredient, matcha, charcoal powder, edible gold flakes, just because it's fashionable. You'd probably end up with a cake that tastes confusing and doesn't feel authentic. Similarly, in music, when the core vision is diluted or compromised for the sake of popularity or style, it can create real tension. On the flip side, Jimmie also admired artists who stuck to their guns, who were unapologetically themselves, even if their style was vastly different from his own. That respect for authenticity, even in disagreement, is a key part of his story. Because at the end of the day, the music world is a big, diverse place. There's room for all kinds of sounds and voices. But that diversity doesn't mean it's always easy to work together. What makes this clash even more relatable is that it's not just a story about musicians. Anyone who's ever been in a team project or creative partnership has probably felt this tension. Maybe you're working on a school project or a startup idea or even planning an event with friends. You have one idea of how it should go, and someone else has a completely different one. You might love minimalist design, and they want it all bright and flashy. Or you want a calm acoustic playlist at the party, and they're all about the booming EDM drops. These differences can lead to heated debates, frustration, and sometimes even resentment. Jimmie's experience puts a spotlight on why creative clashes happen and why they can be so intense. It's because creativity isn't just about making something pretty or functional, it's about expressing who you are inside. When two strong, passionate identities collide, sparks are bound to fly. It's not just a disagreement over notes or beats, it's a clash of hearts and minds. Another layer to consider is how much the music industry itself can fuel these clashes. The pressure to succeed, to stay relevant, to sell records can push artists to compromise their style or try to mold it to what's trending. Jimmie saw this firsthand and was vocal about how frustrating it was to see artists lose their unique voice in the process. He respected those who resisted that pressure, but when artists willingly chased trends that didn't resonate with their true selves, that created a disconnect. What's even more interesting is how this clash of styles isn't necessarily permanent. Some of the most groundbreaking music comes from artists who initially struggled to find common ground, but eventually blended their styles in new and exciting ways. Think of collaborations between rock and hip-hop or jazz and electronic music. These unlikely mixes can produce fresh sounds that break the mold. But it takes openness, patience, and respect, the very things that are often hard to find when strong artistic visions clash. Jimmie's story reminds us that not every creative partnership will work out, and that's okay. Sometimes the best thing you can do is acknowledge the differences and either find a compromise or go your separate ways. It's better to preserve your artistic integrity than to force a collaboration that doesn't feel right. And in the end, the music world, and any creative space really, benefits from having diverse voices that stay true to themselves. So the next time you find yourself frustrated with a creative partner or teammate who just doesn't get your vision, remember Jimmie Page and his experience. It's not a personal attack, it's just the nature of creative expression. Instead of letting it drive you apart, try to see it as an opportunity to learn, grow, or even just understand that some differences are simply part of the process. And if you're the kind of person who tends to be very particular about your creative work, whether it's music, art, writing, or anything else, don't be discouraged when others don't share your exact tastes. Your style is your fingerprint. It's what makes your work unique and special. The key is to find people who respect that and can either compliment or challenge you in ways that push you forward rather than hold you back. In the end, Jimmie's reflections on musical clashes aren't just a rock star confession, they're a reminder for all of us who create, collaborate, and care about our work. Differences in style and vision will come up, but they don't have to mean the end of creativity or friendship. With openness, respect, and a focus on the bigger picture, those clashes can become the spark for something even greater. What's fascinating is that Jimmie's dislike wasn't really about personality in this case. It was more about artistic integrity and vision. He respects musicians who stay true to their sound and values, even if it's different from his own. But when artists compromise just to fit trends or clash in fundamental ways, that's where things get tricky. It makes you realize that behind every collaboration, there's a complex web of creative chemistry, or sometimes a lack of it. Then there's the more personal side of the story. Jimmie shared a poignant example of a musician who, when things got rough, didn't exactly have his back. This part felt very human, a reminder that even the biggest stars face moments of vulnerability and that friendship or loyalty can be fragile. It's easy to forget that behind the glamour and sold-out concerts, these are real people with real emotions. When you think about it, who would you trust if you were a rock legend navigating fame, pressure, and constant public scrutiny? The answer isn't always obvious, and sometimes it leads to unexpected disappointments. This whole revelation also helps bust a pretty persistent myth, the idea that all legendary musicians love and support each other 100% of the time. It's a nice thought, but it's just not how life, or the music business, works. Jimmie's story proves that even icons have their beefs and disagreements, just like everyone else. It's kind of comforting, actually, because it reminds us that fame doesn't exempt anyone from complicated relationships or human flaws. So what can we learn from all this? Here's something you might not expect. According to music psychologists, tensions like these are actually super common in creative industries. When people are passionate about their work, and music is one of the most emotional art forms, emotions can run very high. That passion can spark incredible creativity, but also intense conflicts. So if you're ever working in a creative team or a band, it's totally normal to clash sometimes. It's part of the process. The key is how you handle it. And here's a pro tip from Jimmie himself. He once said that the best way to deal with creative conflicts is to put the music first and the egos second. Wise, right? It's a lesson in humility and focus. When you remember why you started making music in the first place, for the love of the art, it's easier to set aside personal differences and keep the collaboration productive. For all the aspiring musicians out there watching, this is crucial advice. Don't let personality clashes kill your creativity or your passion. Find your vibe, respect others' styles and approaches, and most importantly, stay focused on what brought you to music in the first place. Because at the end of the day, it's about the music, not the drama. Now, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Have you ever had a friend, a coworker, or a collaborator you just couldn't vibe with, but had to keep things professional? Maybe you had to work through your differences or just accept that you didn't see eye to eye. Drop your stories in the comments. I'd love to hear how you handled those tricky situations. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the untold side of rock legends, I've got more juicy stories about music history waiting for you. Check out this video next, gesture to recommended video. It's packed with behind-the-scenes stories that will blow your mind. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to stick around for more content like this, hit subscribe. And ring the bell so you never miss a beat. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I'll catch you in the next one.